that really was a nightmare. I can figure it out on my own. I swear I'm smart. Oh, so handsome. Physical violence everywhere, everywhere. Boring. It's so boring. Oh my God. Okay, I need to calm down. I need to calm down. All right, are you ready to continue on some KU series with me? I have a little bit of a nasty habit of starting series and then not finishing them or even progressing past the first couple of books, because sometimes I want to save books because I'm like, I need this for when I'm feeling slumpy. Other times I'm like, I gotta vary up my content. I can't just binge this series. Sometimes I'm not emotionally recovered from the prior books to actually move on to the next books. We have an incident of that in this mix as well. And then other times I'm just not ready for a series to be done. I want to make sure that I still have one book. I'm not done with that universe yet. It all kind of depends, but the bottom line is I will claim that I love this series. I will claim that it's a favorite series even, and then I just won't ever finish the whole thing. So how do I actually know if it's a favorite or if I really like it that much, or maybe that was a one-off, who knows? Anyways, I'm also feeling a little bit disconnected from KU because I've been doing a lot of library reads lately. That's what we're doing here today. So the books that I am planning to read. First up, we have The Heir Apparent's Rejected Mate by Cate Wells, second book in the 5 Packs series. I read the first book earlier this year. The series is like paranormal, shifters, rejected mates. I think most of them are age gap and kind of like a grumpy sunshine, little bit of difference in station within the pack. So I had read, as I said, that first book earlier this year. It was like read it in a single sitting, just absolutely like wolfed it down. Oh, that's a terrible pun. The bottom line is I read it fast and I wanted to read more from that series, but I was like, I gotta vary things up. The premise of all of these books is so similar. I was like, I have a feeling that much like the Black Dagger Brotherhood, if I read too many of these in a row, I'm not going to love the subsequent books as much. So I was like, want to give it a good shot, make sure that I'm gonna really love it. So I'm ready to move on to the next book. I was also waiting for a time when I felt slumpy. I'm feeling a little bit slumpy because I finished The Ballad of Falling Dragons, I think, by Sarah A. Parker, second book in the Moonfall series. I don't know what to do with myself now. So I think this will be a good cure because it's something I can binge very quickly. And then I have Ashes by Dylan Page, which is the third book in the Bleeding Hearts series. I believe this is still Motorcycle Club, but it's a dark romance. It's got a reverse harem kind of why choose premise. This one I had put off because I read the Torment duet back in like, oh my God, like 2024, I think, maybe 2023. I could look this up and be a better booktuber, but you know, alas, here we are. I was so emotionally devastated by that duet that I was like, there's no way I'm moving on to the next book in this series, even though I've heard that like the subsequent books, not nearly to that level. Feeling ready now. I'm also less sure about this book in general because it is reverse harem. I don't know. I feel very mixed about reverse harem. I like it sometimes, but most of the time it's just not a trope that I really go after. And so I think that's also part of the reason that I've been putting this off. But I also am like that those first 2 books were so like just changed me as a reader that I'm like, I need to move on in the series and just see if Dylan Page is actually an author that I like. If she is, then she'll be able to pull off reverse harem and why choose just fine for me. The final book that I have is Lawless Gods by Lola King. This is the 4th book in the North Shore series. I've been kind of picking at Lola King's backlist. They are just those perfect, bingeable, dark romance, over the top, a little bit unhinged, organized crime kind of gang. I love going back to her universe because although you don't need to read everything from her universe, there are little like Easter eggs and little nods to characters, and I just find that so fun. But I have been putting this one off because it's the last book in this series, and then I have to move on to her new, what is it, Silver Falls University series, I think, which honestly I need to get to because I feel like behind everybody still being stuck on the North Shore series, but I digress. Yeah, this one, it's just time. I gotta get the series finished out. Those are the 3 books that I am planning to read. I do need to warn you, I thankfully don't need to make the disclaimer of I'm not feeling well. Thank goodness. What a horrible month. I still have a touch of vertigo that's still lingering, but I can handle it. I'm okay. But I do have a lot of stressful work things going on right now, so I don't know what that's gonna mean. Exactly. Mead. I don't know what that's gonna mean for what check-ins look like or how mood-wise I'm gonna be doing. But I'm hoping that this vlog can kind of serve as a bit of a distraction from some of that work stress. Oh, do you see baby boy? Yes, he is just sunning himself because he's so handsome. Just a little bit of forewarning there. So I'm gonna get to reading The Heir Apparent's Rejected Mate, and I will check in with you once I feel like I have a better lay of the land. So I will see you very soon. All right, hi. So it's the following day. I'm trying to not show my bra strap. That'd be great. I'm trying to decompress after kind of a stressful work meeting. And I was like, you know what? Let's update the people on how reading is going because I am over 50% into The Heir Apparent's Rejected Mate. So this is a different pack than the first book. And I will warn you that the first 25 pages, white knuckling it. There's a lot of terms that get thrown around. The basic concept is that there's kind of like two tiers or two major tiers. There's knobs, which I always want to say noobs. It's not. It's knobs. They are like the ranked words. You're doing great, honey. Yeah, they're like the ranked pack members. And then there's the scavengers. They are not ranked members and they tend to be poor and tend to reuse a lot of things. They hold a lot of value in not throwing something away, of figuring out how to trade it or reuse it, versus the knobs are trying to fit in with humans and basically discard things like if they're broken or it gets a hole. And so they're just a lot more consumeristic. Consumeristic? Is that a word? It is now. And this is kind of set at this, it's kind of like a high school slash like college prep school where they are going to school with humans and really trying to build up a good relationship with them so that they don't, you know, wipe them off the map because there's so few shifters that are known about, but you know, so humans could just turn on them at any point. And then it gives the werewolves also, not werewolves, wolf shifters, there's a difference. It gives them an opportunity to kind of practice being around humans and like holding back some of their strength and that sort of a thing, yada yada. There is kind of like a clear divide between the different tiers of the wolf shifters. And so it kind of gives it like a high school bully vibe, a little bit of rich boy, poor girl kind of feeling. It's almost like if John Hughes decided to do wolf shifters one day. These people sit over here and those people slum it over there. So our heroine ends up going into heat and she's like, okay, so we're in the school cafeteria. I need to talk to Cate because this something's happening here. So she approaches him and he's like, we don't have anything to talk about. Do you just want to like move along? And he does this because he knows that he has to maintain his rank in the pack. He basically has a, kind of like a contested position. Like he's the heir apparent, but his uncle might come after him and that could really upset order within the pack. And so he's kind of preparing for this fight and knows that he has to really be very dutiful in everything that he does to make sure he has the pack's best interest in mind and maintain stability and their family's control over this pack. So he can't take a low-ranking member as a mate, even if they are fated. This is also something that's happened before. There's like other members that just don't interact with their mates. So there's kind of like a basis for why he's acting how he's acting. Yeah, that's kind of the premise so far. And now they're trying to wade through murky waters of like, how does this work? And then also dealing with kind of high school bullshit. The blurb also says that there is surprise pregnancy in here, but I'm 55% in and they have barely touched. Like a little bit surprised. I kept reading thinking I'm gonna get to that part and then like I'll update you guys. And it was like eating a bag of chips where I was just like, oh my God, I'm over halfway through. Like I need to stop because like obviously the surprise pregnancy is not coming. I think personally, I'm happy that it's in the blurb because I don't want anyone to accidentally stumble on this trope when they don't like it because it is so polarizing. But at the same time, I feel like this trope usually is done best when it happens like right up front or like right at the end so that it's either the main issue or it's something that in the third act, how do we deal with this? I will say that we're already starting to like think through what it would look like if they were to have pups. Like, what does that actually mean? So we're having some of those kind of conversations that would happen if the placement was different anyways, even prior to hanky panky happening. At the same time, I am kind of waiting for that to happen, because I just feel like if it's in the blurb, it should be happening generally, in my opinion, like within the first like 30% of the book. Otherwise, it just doesn't feel like part of the premise. So I don't know. I feel kind of conflicted about that. I do like the relationship. I find the heroine to be pretty intelligent and strategic with how she approaches things, because she was like, well, I'm not going to grovel and hope this guy kind of comes around. She's like, all right, I gotta figure this out on my own. I don't know what this is gonna look like. Even though he knows that he kind of needs to reject her because of pack politics and familial duty, he also is pretty protective of her, and he isn't like cruel to her, which I do like. And he hasn't really ever been cruel to her other than kind of being dismissive of her. Couple of things that I will warn you about. One, the heroine does do some sort of stupid shit, I would say, on the basis of instinct. She's doing this thing, she knows she shouldn't do it, but she was like, my impulse control is just not there. It makes me a little bit like frustrated with some of the setup items. That seems to be kind of going away, so I'm not gonna harp on it too much. The other thing that I will warn you about is that there's a lot of bullying, not from the hero, as I said, he's actually quite nice to her, but from other ranked pack members, and some of it is like bizarrely sexual, and it's like from other women, and it's like focused on her body. I wanted to put that warning out there so it didn't catch you off guard if you plan to read this. But so far I am enjoying it. As I said, I kind of have like some things that I'm like not sure how I feel about them, but you know, like at the end of the book I could be like, actually, you know what, perfect execution, you nailed it, girl. Other than the info dumps at the beginning, that really was a nightmare. Did I mention that already? I don't remember. Well, I have now. The beginning is a little bit of a nightmare. A lot of terms thrown around. Could not find my footing for a second, and then I was fine. So it all ends up working out. But I am going to continue reading, and I will update you probably tomorrow morning, I'm imagining, on what my final thoughts are and how this bad boy went. So I will see you soon.
Hear ye, hear ye. 'Tis I, your fearless leader, with a handsome boy. Yeah, Kevin is joining us already. Are we shocked? Not really. I was just getting ready to film a video. I was like, oh, I should update you on the fact that I have now finished the heir apparent's rejected mate. Now, I want to preface all of this by saying I really enjoyed this, but I feel like it could have been even better. Up to the 60% mark, moved really slow. It was a lot about pack politics, about the heroine's place, about the hero's duty. And then from 60% onwards, the majority of the storyline is there. It was kind of hard because it felt like that storyline needed more room. And maybe if we had like moved up when some of this got kicked off, we would have had that space, or it needed 50 more pages in order to kind of wrap up those storylines that happened, because I felt like the relationship got a fair amount of focus, which was good because obviously we need to get that figured out in a romance. And it was really tender a lot of times. Even early on, you could kind of tell that Cate had this like softer side, but he hid it behind some kind of stoicism, like his stoic nature. So it was nice to see that come out and him be really tender and sweet. I think he could have crossed more and really made it up to her. But I did enjoy their relationship because there was that like tenderness going forward. But I feel like when it came to wrapping up some of the pack politics and what does Cate do, that was just like blown through. And it was so weird because it was like there was no buildup. You kind of knew someone was planning something, but we don't really get to hear about that as a reader. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, this plan that's been in place is executed and it just goes well. Okay, so guess that's done. And I feel like there was more that we could have done with Cate's development. Seeing him become more tender and more true to himself was great. I think that was excellent. Seeing that, you know, the vehicle really was the vehicle for sure. The relationship was a great vehicle for that, but I also think that there was a lot missing in terms of him reconnecting with his wolf that I think we should have seen even more of, because it is such a big issue at the beginning. Why am I so aggressively pointing at you with my mascara and not putting it on? Oh, the whole point of this was I was supposed to be getting ready for this video. Okay, so yeah, I just feel like that last portion either needed to kind of get kicked off sooner, or we needed like 50 more pages to really give this the full oomph that it deserved and really round out that story. Make sure that it had proper development, make sure that it had a satisfying conclusion, because I think that's what I'm kind of left with, because you have that third act, that big thing, but it happens like right at the end of the book. And so the epilogue's just kind of like, all right, here's a few things that kind of happened afterwards, but you don't get a full picture of everything. So like I said, I feel like I'm being really negative, but it's because this book was like so close to being a 5-star that for it to be a 4-star, I'm like, shoot, I see where it could have been just like a little bit better and really just knocked it out of the park. But it is a really good read. I'm obviously going to continue in this series. So that's kind of where I'm landing with the Heir Apparent's Rejected Mate. I think it's kind of obvious I'm going to end up with a 4-star for this one instead of a 5, which is still a fantastic rating. I mean, who can argue with that? So I'm going to move on now to Ashes by Dylan Page, because I'm the most nervous about that one. I feel the least certain that that one's gonna go well, because I never know with authors if they're gonna do I Choose Well. It's a hard one to pull off for me. We're gonna put that one next, and then we're gonna end with the Lola King, because like Lola King never misses for me. So there's that. I'm gonna film this video and then I'll update you on how Ashes is going. That feels wrong to say. Ashes is going. That is technically correct. Should we give you a little bit of FaceTime with the people? Oh, so handsome. Oh, so handsome. Okay, now bye for real.
All right, hi. So I am now like 30-ish odd percent in. It's the following day. And so I thought I'd give you a little bit of a lay of the land of what's going on with Ashes and Dylan Page in Dylan Page. That's not how that works. Ashes by Dylan Page. Tell you what it's about and then also my initial thoughts. So the basic premise for this is that our heroine grew up on the rough side of town up until she was about 10 years old. She was part of a group of friends with 3 other guys, Vale, Shaw, and Lee, that all kind of had tough backstories. They really relied on each other for survival. They did everything together. And so it was always the 4 of them running around. Now, when our heroine is 10-ish, I believe, her mom ends up getting remarried, and that guy lives on the nice side of town. And so she ends up being kind of like yanked away from these boys. They lose contact, and she grows up like going to a prep school and getting designer clothes and just like a very different life than she had initially. Now she's a year away from graduating. She's 17 years old. Her new stepdad and her mom are killed in a car accident. And so this leaves her with really nowhere to go other than with the only guardian that is available for some reason, her father, who is still a drunk asshole and lives on the shitty side of town. So she's going to move back over there and finish out her high school year at the shitty side of town's high school. And that's where she finds out there is a lot going on there. And she is going to have to pick like a team or a side to find some protection, because physical violence everywhere. There's a lot of gangs and groups running around that are not only in the high school, but are kind of backed by outside groups, although we don't know all of those connections yet. And so she's going to have to pick a side, but she's kind of mad at her former BFFs, and they don't seem to be too keen to take her on into their group. So thoughts so far, this feels wildly different than Torment. Like I feel like Torment was so gritty and emotional, and this just feels like kind of a generic high school bully romance. Like I know the MC stuff is coming, but like we haven't seen anything other than like there's kind of one guy buzzing around in the background and stalking her friend. We aren't doing anything with the MC so far. The threats of physical violence, like whether they're actually happening or there's just like a threat there, are just absolutely constant from the time she gets over to the bad side of town. And it's starting to get a little exhausting. It's starting to feel a little bit one note, because there's no relief. There's no moments of like sweetness or levity that kind of break it up to show how bad it really is. The other thing that I was kind of clocking, I can't tell if the heroine is inconsistent, because when she was at the prep school, was talking about like how scrappy she was and how much she has to like suppress those instincts to be scrappy and that old habits die hard. But then she gets to the nasty school and then she's like, keep my head down. Don't don't get in any altercations, don't sass back. And I'm just kind of like, why, girl? If you've got those instincts in you, like, let them out. But then also at the same time, she forgets that she shouldn't wear designer clothes to school because that'll make her stand out. I can't tell if she's just not really of either world because she's grown up for, good chunks of her life in both, or if this is going to feel like a character inconsistency because, like, that's kind of how it's reading right now. So I'm hoping that resolves soon. And then the final thing that I was going to say is that, and this isn't always happening, I am getting just like a touch annoyed at the writing every once in a while, and I'm trying to pinpoint why, so I might pop back in if I end up figuring out what's causing that, because it'll just like every once in a while I'll read a paragraph and I'm just like, ugh, nails on a chalkboard. I hate it. So I'm going to try and see if I can pay attention to some of those paragraphs and find some similarities between them. But other than that, yeah, the boys seem, like typical gruff but sweet. They love her dearly, but they're bad at showing it. Okay. Yeah, so far this is pretty mid. Thankfully, this one, it is on audio on KU, so I have resorted to using the audiobook when I find my interest starting to drift. So I'm kind of hoping that once the like MC stuff picks up, that it'll suck me back in because there'll be like more plot or just more grit or just not high school drama. I'm gonna keep reading. I've got a little bit more time this morning and I'll keep you updated if I figure out what the hell is bothering me with the writing. All right. Chat with you soon. Okay. I just got done reading from this morning. Yes, exactly. I don't remember this taking place in Canada. And there's like little things where I was like, oh yeah, this is Canadian. I don't remember Torment Duet being in Canada. Do I just not remember that? Was that something we knew? I feel like probably, but question for the Canadians, because this came up. The heroine was walking across the street and she was like, the walk sign turned green. And I've been trying to Google this for, I don't want to admit how long. Do y'all actually have green walk signs? Because I thought walk signs were pretty much always like the white walking guy or like an orange. And I'm like trying to rack my brain. I was like, I've been to Canada multiple times like within the past year and I don't remember there being green walk signs. So does it vary by province maybe? I don't know. Canadians, sound off in the comments. I need your help because Google has betrayed me. And then the other thing, I did figure out what's bothering me with the writing finally when I started paying attention to some of the patterns. It is doing a couple different things. So one of the things is we'll have an interaction, we'll have a scene, and then the heroine afterwards will kind of summarize all of the things that the author seems to want you to remember and pick up on, and then tells me how to feel about it. And that's really starting to grate on me because I'm like, I was there. I don't need a recap of that scene. Because it doesn't feel like subtle little clues that I'm then picking up on. It feels really heavy-handed. And then just in general, there's a lot of like telling me how to feel about a scene, telling me how to feel about a character. And I'm like, I can come to this conclusion on my own. You've set it up just fine. I can figure it out on my own. I swear I'm smart. I don't remember having this issue with the Torment Duet. I feel like this happens a lot with authors where I will love one of their books and it is full of emotion. It is so gritty. It is so heartfelt. And then it's like other books in the series or other books they write just don't hold a flame to it. So it feels like this was the story that was like burning in them. And then they're like, I can write. I'm just going to shart out some other books. And that's kind of how this book is feeling. That's how this is feeling. It's a wildly different experience reading this book. And honestly, I'm surprised it's by the same author. I'm surprised it's even in the same series. Like this just feels like it should in no way be connected to the Torment Duet. Anyways, I have rambled on and I really need to get going and do some work because I'm very much behind because of all the stressful things that have been happening this week. It's been really hard to focus. So I am going to go do that. I will keep you posted. The last chunk, I think I'm like up to 45 or 50% or something like that. I'll let you know how the last half goes unless something really crazy happens and I got to pop in. All right, see you soon. Okay, hi. So I need to talk super, super fast because I have no battery. We are going to ignore how I look. I just got out of the shower, but I was reading for a little bit and I need to DNF this book. I have been hate reading it basically since the last time I checked in with you, and I need it to be over because not only is it leaning into everything I didn't like, it had the audacity to have insta love on top of it and no relationship development. Just suddenly she's fucking with all three of these guys. On top of that, it's boring. It's so boring. Oh my God. How is a motorcycle club book boring? They're just sitting around an apartment. I couldn't give less of a fuck. Oh my God. Okay, I need to calm down. I am baffled that this is in the same series with the Torment duet, which is so emotional, like super based in the MC. That's like how they live their lives. Like there's so many little like passing references to the prior book and former characters and all that, but we're doing nothing with the MC. Why is this an MC book? Why is this in the series? This should be at most an ancillary story that we put out later that could be read as a standalone. Like, I feel like I'm getting really worked up. I will give you a proper wrap up of this book at another time after I've processed a little bit more. I'm gonna move on to the next book. I do not remember the title off the top of my head. I'm a little bit worked up, but I'll get to reading that and we'll just do the trade-off in the next clip. Yeah, you guys get it. Okay, all right, go team, go.
Hey divas. So I've calmed down. It's the following day. I've done a little bit of processing. I'm feeling a little bit less ragey, so I thought I'd hop on and say hi and talk about this book. Thankfully, my husband was really sweet and could tell I was not doing well and decided that he was like, you know what? It's been a rough week. Let's go to DQ, get ourselves a blizzard, take a walk in the park without our phones. And my friends, that is real love. Because if you are in the Seattle area, you know there's no Dairy Queens in the Seattle city limits. So this man took me for a long drive to get ice cream with me. That definitely helps me decompress. But let's actually talk about what you want to hear about, which is why I rage DNF'd Ashes by Dylan Page. So I may accidentally get a little bit spoilery. I'm going to try not to, but I'm just going to warn you that that may happen. But this, I think, comes down to kind of like two major things and then like a lot of other little compiling things. So I think the main thing that really started to fall apart for me is all of the telling about how to feel emotionally was really starting to grate on my nerves because I'm an Aries and a contrarian. You're not even my real dad. So what a bold choice on Dylan Page's part, first off. I think the downstream effect was like, I just wasn't buying what this book was selling. Like the emotional bonds between the heroine and the guys, or even how the heroine is feeling in a scene, I just wasn't buying what it was selling. It led to this weird situation where they just all sort of decided that they were together. There was just like no conflicting feelings, no confusion. No one even questioned that they would all be together. And I'm just like, they just all started like taking a turn with her. Why are we not having any conflicting feelings? Why are we not having any confusion? Why are we just accepting that this is just good, gravy, golden? I don't get it. There's no basis for this other than like you were friends as kids, but they've been assholes since. So why are we just accepting this setup? I don't get it. The inciting incident that leads to them protecting her and also revealing their kind of side of the story just makes everything that happened previously in the book make absolutely no sense. Like, I still don't get why they were ignoring her and kind of low-key, by extension, participating in her bullying when she got back into town. Like, the only thing I can think of, truly, is that this bullying aspect is a convention of why choose, and so therefore this story also had to have it. But it doesn't make sense with these characters, and it doesn't make sense with their explanation for why they ignored her. Like, it would have made way more sense for them to be like, I've loved you, we've always loved you, immediately you need to be part of our crew, you're under our protection now. That would have made way more sense. But no, instead they watched everyone bully her and did almost nothing. Why? And then there was just like a bunch of other things that stopped making sense too. Supposedly, they had also been keeping tabs on her the entire time she had gotten to that side of town, and yet her showing up to school was a shock to them. So that can't possibly be true. Some of the scenes that they had with the heroine when she revealed information and they were surprised, I was like, you already knew. In fact, you knew more than the heroine, so why is any of this a shock? And then on top of that, there was just like a ton of little things where it was like, the boys are barely distinguishable. So
much of the book was spent on her getting bullied and then sitting around the apartment. There has not been hardly anything to do with the MC. And here we've seen one motorcycle, and it's so obvious how that's going to lead into the third act that I was like, I already know how this book is going to end. Like, it's that apparent. And we're spending so much time on way less consequential things that don't even build into what that third act's going to be. And then there was like this introduction of a BDSM plotline. I was like, where did this come from? And it's not just one of the guys that has a relationship like that with her. It was like all of them. And like the second another hero jumped in and was like, all right, my turn, I was like throwing my Kindle across the room. I was like, are you serious? Also, the heroine uses the term girly bits during sexy time. Jail.
Believe it or not, jail right away.
I don't know, this book just feels so poorly constructed kind of on a macro level and so poorly written on a sentence level. And it's just relying so heavily on tropes that like the plot just doesn't even make sense. The relationships don't make sense. There's no feeling to this book. It's just so aggressively average at best that I'm just like, I don't want to read anything from Dylan Page anymore. This book to me is baffling that this exists in the same series, in the same world as Torment, which was so nuanced, so gritty, so emotional, and just like I think about that duet all the time. And then this and you know what's really wild too, reading this back to back with Lawless God, is that Lawless God by Lola King is in a very similar type of world because it's like got a town where there's like a rich side and a poor side. The poor side is run primarily by rival gangs. Like you have to align yourself with one of them. And yet it is so much better. It is so much more engaging. So let's move on to talk about that. I'm 15% into that. So I don't really have like a super great update for you. I'm just barely through the setup and I don't even know if I'm fully through it yet, but I'm absolutely addicted. So basically the premise for this is that our heroine is Kayla. So that's Caden from Beautiful Fiend. It's his sister. She's the leader of the Kings. She will do anything for her crew. So she had kind of an arrangement going with Nathan, who was from the Cosa Nostra, that provided some protection for her crew and made sure that they were able to make the deals that they wanted to. Well, she ended up wanting to cut him out at a certain point, and that means that she had to ally herself with the wolves so that she could kind of have a little bit more even footing and have a little bit more power. But part of that negotiation meant that she had to send Nathan to jail for life. And she lied on the stand to do it. But years later, he ends up getting out and he has been dismantling her crew behind the scenes sneakily, piece by piece, until she has no option but to be his captive. I'm at the part where he's just taken her. She's in a rough spot. Like it is all bad everything for poor Miss Kayla. But I have been riveted. There's so many callbacks to that first book with like the flipping of powers with the gangs, with like the death matches. We've already had like character deaths and very like high stakes, like life and death scenarios for others. And it's just been so cool to watch Kayla be scrappy and scheme and figure out what to do next. And unhinged, it's dark. I'm like constantly flipping the pages. And I just think it's so crazy. I'm 15% in to this book and I like don't want to put it down. But then with Ashes, that last 15% that I was reading, I was so miserable and it was taking me forever. That to me is just like highlights the difference between a good book that I'm enjoying and a book that I dislike. Like it's just night and day difference. And I'm so happy I DNF'd because I really truly was gaslighting myself into finishing Ashes. And I'm very happy that I DNF'd. All right, I got to get to editing this Friday's video. So unless something wild happens and I need to pop in, I probably won't update you until tomorrow because then I think I'll have a few more thoughts on the actual plot itself and we'll just take things from there. All right, y'all are the best. I will see you soon. Well, hello there, hotties. So I don't want to admit how many times I've tried to film this clip and it got interrupted because this guy right here would not settle. Thankfully, he has since settled. So I can finally update you on how things are going with Lawless God. I'm like 50-ish% in, close enough anyway, and wanted to give you some of my thoughts on the plot so far. So a lot of this is just about Nathan torturing poor Kayla and making her life hell for making his life hell. That's kind of fun just because you never know what they're plotting against each other. They're just always at odds, and they like kind of like that dynamic, but are also kind of in earnest being really violent with one another because gangsters, am I right? But I think like quite a bit of that torture is kind of sexually based, where he makes her so desperate to get her rocks off that she's like, I'll do whatever you want. I don't know that I find that the most compelling. That's like a criticism I have of that trope in most books. Like, it's fine. It's fine. I just don't really find it convincing. There's that. There's also a lot of spice in the relationship kind of because of that element. It is aiding in some relationship development. We're starting to slowly see some softening, but I think like the spice to relationship development ratio, we're leaning this way a lot more. So it's a lot spicier than development, but we are starting to see some of that, which has been interesting because it's like so unclear if them starting to soften towards one another is them actually starting to have feelings, if it's because they're being manipulated, if they just don't have a good read on their feelings and they've misread themselves. Like, it's so unclear, especially because Nathan just seems to be so out of touch with his feelings. Like, it's very clear that he's supposed to be read as like psychopathic because he's kind of constantly asking Kayla to like name her feelings so that he poses it as so I can read her, but I'm like, I just think he doesn't know what's going on with him either. Oh, and it's been really fun because we've been getting like little cameos from characters in prior series and prior books from the Lolaverse. And it's nice because it's not that like kiss ass, oh my God, and then I met her and she was the best ever. And you're like, that's not the person I met in the prior book. Or they just like instantly get along and are best friends. No, like all of these people feel like the characters from their book, from their series. And it's been kind of fun just seeing them pop up every once in a while and how they relate and interact with our main characters, because like we loved them at one point, but they don't have a lot of love for our main characters. So it's been kind of fun seeing all those dynamics. Oh, two things that came up that made me like drop my Kindle. Guys, okay, so picture this. I was reading last night. I have my Kindle in my hands, cat on my lap, retainers in, slimy skincare on, hair up. I'm ready for bed. I put the pieces together for what Kayla is keeping. Her little secret, because we knew that she had a secret, but I was like, oh, I didn't understand the full context here. I hadn't put that together. And then when I did put it together, like I dropped my Kindle and was like, what the fuck, what the fuck, what the fuck? I'm so excited to see how all of that ends up playing out because very, very juicy, very, very dramatic. And then the other thing, less fun, significantly less fun. One of the characters accidentally eats glass. And as someone who's done that, full trauma response. But for real, I really was like, oh, I don't really want to read this scene. Just a couple months ago, like earlier this year, this happened to me. The short of it is glass made it into like a food container that I had and I was eating leftovers. And I accidentally ate glass. And I was like, wow, this is way crunchier than it's supposed to be. This is kind of gross. I'm going to throw it out. And then I realized that there was glass in there. And then for 72 hours, I got to panic about whether or not I was going to die or end up in the ER. So that was really fun. Nothing happened, but it was a stressful 72 hours. It was a little bit too recent for that to be funny at this point. So that's where I'm at. I have a little bit more time to read this morning, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that. I will update you if anything like wild happens, but other than that, I will probably meet up with you at the end of this, which will either be, I guess, later today or tomorrow. Very exciting. All right, I will see you very soon. Okay, hi. I was just trying to read this on my lunch break and I fear I've been rendered speechless. I don't know how there's more book after what just happened. Like, what the fuck? Baffled, perplexed. I need to keep reading, but also I'm just kind of stunned right now. Where does this go from here? Well, I guess I'm about to find out. Wish me luck. Oh, well... I feel like these clips on other people look like cute and I feel like they're giving preschool on me. We might need to figure out how to clip these better. Or maybe it's just my face. Okay, anyways, we're gonna forge onwards. I have now finished Lawless God by Lola King and that ending had twists and turns on twists and turns and got really emotional. I was actually kind of surprised just given how like dark, kind of captive, gang violence type of energy it brings, and then to get so emotional towards the end, I was like kind of impressed to have such a switch. The epilogue was also really funny. It was two gangsters trying to have a domestic moment, but also like do their business, and it was a little bit entertaining. It did give me a good little giggle. I think if I was to be picky, this did feel just like a touch long, and I can't really pinpoint like a single single scene where I was like, this was the one that really took it over the edge. But at a certain point, I was just kind of a little bit emotionally exhausted because there's just constantly bad guys coming after them and things happening and attacks. And I think at a certain point, I was just like, oh my God, I need a break. Now, could that be because I am actually just straight up sleep deprived and probably need to take a nap? Maybe. Probably gonna nap after this. I had a really good time with this one. I'm gonna give this one 4 stars as well. And I think this might be my favorite read out of this video. So that's a fun little high note to end on. Unfortunately, Ashes by Dylan Page was a big fat no. Cate Sewell's series, I definitely need to continue on in that. Overall, although there were some hits and misses, I mean, I had 2 successful books out of this, which is more than I get in some vlogs. So I'm gonna count that as a success. And it's really a reminder to me that I do need to continue on with series, with the caveat, if I get the inkling that the next book in the series is not gonna be one I'm gonna like, maybe I'm right and I should trust those instincts. Anyway, I would really love to hear from you now. If you've read any of these books or these series, I would love to hear your thoughts on them. If they're the same, different, I would just love to know what you thought about them. I'd also be really curious if there's any series that you guys kind of hold back and treat it as precious. Like, I want to know what series those are for you. With all of that, thank you so much for being here. Don't forget to like this video if you did in fact like it, and don't forget to subscribe if you would like more content for me. I would really, really love to have you back on another video, so I really do hope I see you on the next one. Bye-bye.